Anyways, smells good. All right. Does anybody need this AC? You want a paper copy of this one? No? The answer is no? Okay. Forget it. Set it and forget it. Okay, so here's the key for this one. If you could just pay attention real quick here. Range, obviously you need to find the highest and the lowest y value. Sinusoidal is the only function that is restricted on both ends when it comes to range. Always. Whether it's a word problem or it isn't, it is capped, okay? So you find the max and the min. And some of you didn't, maybe make sure you read when you answer word problems. This is the depth of water relative to a specific measurement point on the beach. So imagine this, there's maybe like a stick at the beach and there's some sort of mark there. And so there's a point that it's measuring from. So if the water goes below that mark, you are at the negatives. If the water goes above that mark, right, this is positive, this is negative. So it's not with respect, you know what, I actually, some of you tried things and I actually take that over blank any day. Give it a try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least you have a chance. Okay? So it tells us that the lowest depth is 0.21 meters below the point and that the highest is 405 above. Okay? Next, regarding the period, and I'm going to take this opportunity to add something to your study sheet because I think some of you are getting you kind of know how to calculate it, but you don't really know how to explain it. That's something that we're struggling with. First of all, it's whatever the units are, whatever your x variable is measured in. So in this case, we realize that t is my x value, d is the y value, right? So period is whatever the x variable is, which happens to be hours. So when you find this, it's actually 11.50 because it's 4992, I believe, or something like that. If you round to 2 decimals, you have to go 0.50, not just 0.550. It means that it takes 11.5 hours for the depth to go from lowest to the highest, then back down again. That is, in my opinion, that's like the best. Because if you're saying it's for a full cycle to complete, it's a little bit vague, okay? And I would even say, why don't you say it goes from here to the highest and back to the lowest, right? Like this is a period right here. It's the x, the amount of x values that you go from one to the other, okay? Next, the depth at 2 p.m. Since midnight is 0 hours, 2, if you say x is equal to 2, you're saying at 2 in the morning, right? 2 a.m. So you have to convert it to 14 hours and then go second trace value, x is equal to 14 to get 3.73 meters, okay? Don't forget your units, please. For how long is the depth below 1 meter? Some of you went y2 is equal to 0, and some of you had just watched me do the lesson about you wanted to know below, but we found above, so you subtract from the total time and that whole thing. And some of you thought, oh, I probably have to do that here as well. In this case, you didn't, because if you focus on a cycle and you draw your y is equal to 1 line, okay, y is equal to 1 line, if you find this intersection and that intersection and you subtract those 2 times, which I have right here, you get half a mark per time, and you subtract them, you get 4.11. I don't know what happened sometimes, to be honest, because you showed me you understood what needed to happen, but some of these values didn't make sense. So what you need to make sure is you don't continue this and find, for example, this one, and then way out here, they need to be consecutive, right? Within one cycle, like this top to this top, that is considered a cycle. So that's where you're finding out how long it took, was under a meter, okay? What does the negative depth represent? That the water level is below the measuring point. With respect to that point, it's below, okay? I actually thought it was a pretty good answer. Some of you said like there's no water left, it's all like it's seeped into the sand. It's like, okay, I know you know what's kind of happening, you're envisioning it, but in this case you had to go with respect to that point, okay? All right, next, your graph. For the most part, I don't have complaints. I mean, yes, I'm gonna keep complaining about labels. Make sure your axes and your equation is there. The scale was pretty good. I don't have complaints on that. And make sure you start at the y-intercept if it's a word problem. I would strongly recommend you do that. I only asked for one cycle. Some of you had trouble with figuring out what that is. One cycle, I would just make sure you have two tops. Okay, that's one cycle. Or three middles, right? Like this is like a mid, back to the mid. So three middles in a row is also considered a cycle. And so there was 3.5 marks there. Let's look at the back real quick. Some of you did that, and I gave you a bonus mark for that. So there are 32 students, 10 are on the basketball team, 16 are on the volleyball team. Fill everything out. I do tell you that 2 are in both. So 2 goes in there, you subtract it from 10, 2 you subtract it from 16. How do you find the 8? There's several ways to do that. I would just fill everything in, subtract it from 32, and then make sure the 8 is the remaining. Do you remember probability questions based on a Venn diagram? What's the probability of someone not taking either of those sports? What would you do with that? 8 out of 32, right? So remember, what's the probability that someone is in both sports? 2 out of 32 and so forth. I'm just using this to review. How many students are not on either team? They're asking for outliers. Remember the notation for outliers. And so it's 8 students. You already did the work, so you just had to really answer there. So you got the bonus marks there. Okay, I'm gonna stop this here.